Good evening and welcome to United Soccer FC. I'm your host, Harry here. Joining me tonight is Landon, who's co-host and producer of Moontower Soccer. His co-host is Jeremiah Bentley. They are part of the Striker Texas, and to me, if you can try to support them, where you can get great coverage of Austin FC from Chris Bills, Jonathan Check covering SAFC, and Mark Bay, who covers the Bold. And there's several others that cover the game of soccer across Texas. So my only complaint, Landon, and I think I brought it up with Jeremiah, is that Moontower Soccer doesn't have its own Twitter handle to where I can tag it specifically. For that here, it's awesome to tag you guys, but sometimes to tag the Moontower Soccer for that here. But you guys do an awesome show. It's a great listen. I know typically it's released Tuesday mornings, and of course it is covered on most major podcast platforms here. Derek is also joining us here. He's part of the starting 11 of Los Verdes, the supporter group in Austin. He is the treasurer. And just to, full disclosure, Derek has been a pretty good friend to listen to my complaints, concerns, grumbles, especially after Austin FC was confirmed for that here. And like I said here, been a kind of a good resource to, vent some of my stuff compared to just putting it out on social media for that here. So thank you, Derek. I'm sure you've saved me from being blocked by more Austin FC fans here. So
no, you always have a good perspective, Harry, for sure. So thanks for keeping me in the loop with all things San Antonio and all.
So, but to kind of get started, tonight's topic's obviously going to be Austin FC for that here, who's going to be an expansion team. First year, in order to talk about Austin FC, we have to go back to the beginning, and without rehashing all the drama of Austin FC coming into MLS and what involved with that here. And we'll start with you, Landon, here. What are the moments that you stick out that's the most positive, and then what were the moments that were maybe more on the negative side that stuck out to you during that process of from being announced, Columbus Crew may be relocating to actually getting the expansion bid?
I'll start with the negative one so we can end on a high note. But I think the negative parts were just like you hinted at this, but all of the kind of negativity and bitterness that we were all exposed to online during all of this was something that I had not been a part of before. I essentially started using Twitter to engage with the Austin soccer community. That's like why I started using it, and it worked, but it also opened my front door to this whole new level of internet trolls and hatred and all this other stuff. And so I think soccer is like, not soccer specifically, but any fandom of anything on the internet is going to have its fair share of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then whenever you bring in the kind of situation that was happening around us, it makes it even worse. So I think that's the worst part. And then the best part is just going to be all these little steps along the way that have made this a real thing, because there was a long stretch of time where this was by no means a given that there was actually going to be a team in Austin. There was several steps along the way that
the Austin Council meetings that went to wee in the morning.
Yeah, city council meetings, the stuff that happened in Columbus, which thankfully ended well for both sides. Very happy that Columbus got to keep their team and that we got a team as well. So I think that ended as positively as it could have. But then just along the way, the announcement with Alexi Lawless emceeing, getting to be there for that event, and then first player signings, and now all the way, I know I'm skipping a lot of things, but all the way up to first official training starting this week. So it's crazy to look back even a year ago and think of what we were talking about and what we were thinking about, and to think here we are now a few weeks away from the first game being played, which is pretty surreal.
For you, Derek?
I think what Landon said about the negative aspect, that's hard to beat when it comes to kind of the low of my experience on Twitter and as a sports fan, really just I'd say my block list is a good 50, 60 long still from those days. Maybe I'll reconnect with some of those Columbus folks. I want to go back up there or something. But yeah, I mean, it was crappy to see people in Austin being on the end of that. And I mean, and I did tell people, like up there, it's like, I feel like this, I have to support this opportunity here personally, but I hope that we end up in a situation that both cities get to keep a team. And honestly, I didn't think that was going to happen for a while. I really, but that was what they wanted me to think probably, right? But anyways, fact is like Landon said, it ended up working out. I think the end result being a positive for both cities, for soccer in this country to be represented at a high level and as many cities as we can get it in this country is great. So yeah, and I'd say the positive was definitely just of that part of the saga was definitely getting to celebrate with folks the day of the announcement and just hugging a bunch of people and just starting to dream. There you go. Starting to dream about what this could be and what we think and hope it will be here starting in about 6 weeks. So
my view is obviously a little bit different than yours, and it's different because we were the third party to this here. I think from San Antonio's side, looking back at it now, we were already kind of on edge because SAFC or SA to MLS with Spurs Sports and Entertainment, they weren't the most transparent, and they're never the most transparent. But I think we were completely blindsided, and I don't think on our side we really had a voice in the discussion, which I think egged it on, and that's why. Unfortunately, I think for Austin, you guys were kind of caught in the middle because you had Columbus on one side that was fighting for their team, and then you had SAFC fans that was fighting for their dream of having MLS, and Austin FC fans were kind of caught in the middle. And looking back, it really wasn't fair to you guys, but unfortunately with social media, that was the only avenue to express frustration. And I know I bounced on that line a couple of times, probably stepped across it a time or two, but not too far, hopefully.
Hey, I never blocked you, Harry. So yeah.
There are a few that did. So, but I think like I said here, I just unlike a few others, once it was done, it was done. There was the discussions that where it went through, where you threw your 2 cents in for what it mattered on social media, and I think all sides had a little bit of truth in it, and then a little bit of you're kind of really stretching it. We'll say for it here. But my positive though, and like I said here, is seeing the explosion of the Austin soccer fan base. Because the Austin Aztecs had a good following, but but it was never great. It was never outstanding. Like it is, like it looks like it's going to be now, and including the Bold, who, despite the ownership, have a decent following for being where they're at there, and then of course Austin Elite and the women's game is growing like crazy up there. So to me, my positive, is just the fan base of Austin and how you guys have all came together and supported it. More than I think anybody would, number one, would thought of, and beyond, I think anybody's expectations, and including pre-courts.
I think looking back at kind of those early days, those of us who were kind of within the fan movement at the time, I think we looked at things like the things that were happening and we thought that it could be big, but we're like, had pretty much the entire MLS internet telling us,
well, it wasn't
wrong.
Just MLS, it was
fail.
everybody.
US American soccer internet telling us like, this is going to fail. Austin's not going to do well. And we're like, maybe they're right. I don't know. Like, we've never done this before, but we thought it was going to be big. And so there have been like several moments. I think that's part of why a lot of these kind of landmarks, the milestone moments along the way have been so sweet, is because we're essentially proved right that we thought it could work. And I think it's just been really, really cool to get that affirmation of like, oh, Austin can support a soccer team and do it really well. And I think we're seeing a lot of signs of that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about the pros and cons of that. Now, how excited is Austin about Austin FC? You know, I was up there 2 weeks ago, I guess, and drew by Q2 Stadium. So there's some advertisements, on 35. But just, obviously there's excitement in the city. But as far as expanding it out, whether you're going up north 35, south 35, I don't see a lot down here. And I don't, to be honest with you, I don't expect a lot, at least initially, just out of respect, between, SAFC and Austin FC right now. But the excitement level, and how have you seen it grow from, 2 years ago, I think, when you guys were announced, because I think you guys had a two-year leeway coming in. How has that excitement grown that you guys have seen or experienced? We'll start with you, Derek.
Yeah, I think, we've definitely seen it grown in a lot of ways. To me, I think the most exciting growth I've seen is people who aren't even really soccer fans, or maybe not even big sports people, they're just asking me about it all the time. Like my neighbor the other day saw my car magnet about Austin FC, and she's not a soccer fan, and kind of just wanted to know the basics of it. And it's just like, yeah, people are seeing like team gear everywhere. Like basically, I feel like almost every time I'm out, I see a sticker or some gear or whatever. And to me, to have that base level of support, and we see it with like, season ticket deposits, like that base level from day one. And I think once people actually see like what the game experience, the game atmosphere and all that can look like, I think that will really, and hopefully a good product on the field. But those things combined, I think will really just like be like, to people who don't know the game, be like, wow, I didn't even know this could exist here. So I'm super excited for people to see that in year one.
What about you, Landon? I know you probably get a little bit of a pulse, with the podcast along those lines. What's kind of the excitement level that you and Jeremiah get, and feedback from the podcast that you do, and then just, just around town?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the podcast goes, it's been, I think I was looking back, Jeremiah and I have been doing podcasts together for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years now. And like back in those days, I think we knew pretty much everyone who listened. Like we knew who they all were.
I know that.
It's not the case anymore. Like there are people reaching out on Twitter, meeting people, like less events now, but the interest has just grown that much around the team that what used to be this really small community of people that we all knew each other, maybe every once in a while a new person would come in, and now it's just like exploded to where the people paying a lot of attention is so big that it's impossible to know everyone, which is a good thing, right? It means more people are coming in. But going back to just like little anecdotal evidence, I walked down a street in my neighborhood that I hadn't walked down in a long time, big Austin FC flag hanging in the front yard, and then went out to Meanwhile Brewing to pick up some beers the other day, and I saw, I think, 3 different people wearing Austin FC gear out there. And so, yeah, I think for a long time.
Not to mention that brewery even has a soccer pitch in it. Like, how cool is that?
Oh, nice.
You seen that 2 or 3 years ago? So that's pretty cool. But sorry to interrupt you there, Landon.
No, but it's just, I think it's like anecdotal evidence, sure, but you see it more just out in the community. Stickers on cars driving in front of you, and neighbors with stuff, and people just out and about wearing Austin FC gear. And then I think another thing is people who don't necessarily like soccer, they know that this is happening, and I think the demographics in Austin are such that it's a lot of people from lots of different backgrounds, but people who are at least open to soccer or soccer curious, and may have never gone to a soccer game, but they know it's coming and they're excited and they're like, yeah, I didn't get season tickets, but I want to go to a game or two. And I've met dozens of people who have mentioned things like that.
So going to the game is a good transition to Q2 Stadium. AJ had they played Lone Star, I think what's Town and Country field up there in North Austin. We drove by it. My wife didn't really like the outside of it, with the brown and the green, the Verde, pardon me, for that here. And, but my son liked it, which obviously he's going to be the one that's probably who Austin FC is going to be targeting because he's 12 and, my generation's locked into SAFC. He goes to SAFC, but with Austin up the road with MLS, obviously, and he is a MLS fan. He liked it. He's like, hey, can we go someday? And I was like, yes. Kind of groaned. But
we can make sure to loan him all the gear he needs, Yeah,
so you don't have to buy it for him.
Yeah.
So, well, he has some MLS scarves, and what's funny is, you guys will get a kick out of this is, every Christmas I try to get him a scarf, and I go on to MLS, fan side, along those lines, and say, hey, these are on discount, and I was like, you want a Columbus Crew one yet? He's like, no. So he's like, well, why don't you I just don't like Columbus Crew. And so I was like, he's got that built into him. I'm like, why don't you like them? I'm like, I don't like them, Dad. I watched them play, and I was like, no. I was like, all right. So
something about that yellow, it's just a little triggering.
I don't know. I just find it funny out of all the teams, and of course he has zero clue of all the drama that went on. And I told him, and I think I told Derek this at the time. I was like, I watched what I said about Austin FC when I was around him, and I even told him, I was like, look, I may not go to Austin FC, but if you want to support them, that's fine. Because that's how I don't believe SA San Antonio will ever get an MLS team with Austin here. And the only way San Antonio will get a team is if Austin is like Atlanta United, along those lines, that shows that this area will support it compared to the history of Dallas and Houston. But for Q2, is it, I think you guys have both been inside of it. Is it
I have
better
not been
than,
inside of
oh,
it.
you
yet.
haven't?
No.
Oh, wow. But is it better than promised from what you've seen? Because, looking at the layouts, I know they've done some things. I think they're, on everybody's wish was a queso fountain. I don't think that made the cut, but
not yet.
Early on, that was a dream wish. But I guess for you, Derek, because I believe you have been inside of it, is it better than what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I got to go. I think that was last fall, so before the grass and all that was put in. But I definitely, I felt like, there's the intimacy of there's not too many seats, but I think the roof structure makes it feel grandiose and big. That was kind of what stuck out to me, and I got to hear a trumpet and 2 or 3 drums in an empty stadium. And it was loud under that roof. So that's the other takeaway. Is it's going to be loud as hell under this roof, and I can't wait for that. And I hope the apartment complex, a couple 100 feet away, is ready for that too.
Ready for it.
Yeah.
Now, and I was reading about the parking, because that's always been a questionable issue with it. And Capital City Soccer did a blog back on it in November under the Austin FC Total Transportation Guide. In kind of reading it, I think they said there was 800 and some parking spots, but those are most likely not going to be for the average season ticket member, family, friends, and stuff like that. The light rail or the public transportation based on the article, sounded like it was still probably 2 to 3 years out. So transportation going in, transportation going out, especially it's supposed to open in June, right? So around 2 months or so for that here. Any idea on how that's going to look? Because we talk about, hey, the excitement for it, and maybe not this year, but I could see if they don't get the parking, the parking situated, that it could sour or turn some people off, because if it takes 2 hours to get out of it, and Austin traffic's horrible to begin with. But, to get in and out of the stadium, do you think Austin FC has a plan for that? And how will it be received, or, along those lines?
Yeah, I think that's something like that I've seen a lot of people say, like, what about parking? And I think you don't necessarily need parking, but you do need a plan. Mm-hmm. So like Austin does events, right? Like ACL and Blues on the Green, and I think Blues on the Green is a good example, because it's tens of thousands of people sometimes coming out for a single event, sometimes weekly. And that's it's gonna exist for one night and disappear in one night. And there's not enough parking at Zilker Park for that many people, and they make it happen. For ACL, they make it happen. For these events, they make it happen. It's because they've been doing it and they have a plan, and they know how to do it now. I think this first season, there's probably going to be some hiccups because they've never done it before. Mm-hmm. And things are changing. I think the rideshare pickup is going to be one place this season, but will likely be somewhere else next season whenever the train stop is finished. So I think they're going to have to figure some stuff out. So it could be a little bit hairy early on, but the city of Austin knows how to do these things, and Austin FC is working with the city of Austin to make it smooth. So even if it's rough at first, I think they'll figure it out. I'm not worried about the number of parking spots per se. I think they just need to have a good plan for it.
And I think it's more second half of the year and year 2 and beyond that I think really is where they have to have it figured out by. Because I think the first year, it's the brand new toy. You're gonna accept the growing pains. But if it's years, half a year, year one, from year 1 to year 2, what kind of changes do they make here? Any thoughts on that, Derek, or did Landon kind of cover it for you?
Yeah, I think he hit the main points. I did want to add one thing about transportation. That was the ideal right at the doorstep of the stadium train station isn't ready yet. But there is a train station about a mile away. That's probably how I'll get to and from the game. I don't know if they're going to have a shuttle for me, or I don't mind walking a mile to and from the station. And there's also one of the Metro Rapid buses, one of the more high volume bus routes that goes through the heart of the city, also stops like quarter mile from the stadium or so. So there are some transit options. That's not enough for everyone. And even when they put that station right there, it's not a super high volume transit line. So that won't solve it on its own. But I do think it's an important part of the puzzle. And as someone who's going to go there early and probably leave late, it probably won't be too bad for me to get on the train and all that. So I'll do that.
I think another thing to mention is that you have to imagine that the free market's going to kick into gear around this too, right? With all these warehouses and breweries and all this stuff around there, that most of it sits empty on evenings and weekends. Yeah. And so you've got this empty warehouse or like a big parking area, charge as much as you want to park there within kind of this mile area around the stadium. It looks like that now. It might not look like that in 5 years, but I think for this first year, there's probably going to be lots of places to park that are pretty close by.
And I will say, I hope that, those that do that don't price gouge the supporters and the fans that go, and, that it's a reasonable price, along those lines here. But to me, like I said here, as somebody that's, I'm not from San Antonio. I moved here, 21 years ago. And I've been to Austin a few times, but not enough to know the city and the layout, along those lines here. So, but that's good. So game day, and this is going to be probably a little bit more your section to start out here, Derek here. First, I want to, just kind of disclose that, I am a paid supporter of Los Verdes, based on my relationship with you and a couple others, for that here. However, and I asked you if I could join because, obviously I'm not a supporter of Austin FC, but I did want to support, Los Verdes because of the relationships that I've been able to build with several of the members there, for that here. So what makes Los Verdes so special? And for those that are looking to join, what's the easiest way to be able to do so?
Yeah. I think what makes Los Verdes special is just, well, I think the community that we have is what makes us special. And I mean, that might sound kind of just generic because I'm sure a lot of supporters groups feel that way. And I'm sure there's great soccer communities through supporters groups all across the country. But I think we have a special community that is, that there's just a lot of people were involved from the beginning of building this. And a lot of people, I think, feel ownership over it. And we hope we can continue to empower new folks to feel like that they have a piece of ownership of this and control over it and through all of that. So I think that's really important. I think the fact that this community was built during 2020 when so many of us desperately needed some community and interaction with people is just really strange but unique. And there's just this bond of it happens all the time now where, I'll go to an event and meet someone I've been talking to online for 8-9 months for the first time in person. And it's weird, but at the same time, like I said, I think it's a special community because a lot of us would say what was, the bright spot of 2020 for you is this community. And we saw people rallying together to really pitch in and help people through the disaster of the last few weeks. And I think we just want to grow that. We want to grow the kind of the infrastructure to help more people in our community and outside of our community in Austin and surrounding areas. So, and to answer your question about how to join, you can go to Los Verdes ATX.org, and there's a store link there. And right at the top of the store link, you can buy a membership kit. It comes with scarf, koozie, pin, stickers, all that good stuff. So
yeah, it's well worth it, and it's reasonable. And like I said here, I met you 2 years ago now, I guess, when the Athenians played Austin Elite, and it was the World Cup where the U.S. was playing, and I met you and Katie. I forget which place it was.
At Easy Tiger. At that
yeah, Easy Tiger. And you guys are all nice and met, several others, of Los Verdes, at the time here. So yeah, it was kind of weird. It's like, are you sure you don't know him? I was like, yeah, but he said he's going to be there.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. You come up there and to get to hang out. It was fun.
But it was fun.
I've done a lot of that over the last couple of years. Just like, hey, we talk on Twitter sometimes. You want to be friends?
Yeah.
I became friends with the freaking Cooligans that way.
Yeah.
To me, it's a great way. And I know, you look at what happened with the winter storm, 2021, that we just went through. The soccer community is special. You had Columbus Crew that, supporters that were helping, Austin, through here. I know when RGV, had some issues, last summer, due to, I think it was tornadoes or flooding or something along those lines, flooding. I know we reached down and helped them. And that's what I really love about the soccer community is for 90 minutes, you don't like each other and you'll say things you can't say normally, for that here. But once that 90 minutes is over, everybody's cooled down, you can go have a pint, have a beer or whatever, and, talk a little bit of banter back and forth and move on. But, when the community needs needs to come together, most, if they're able to, will step up and help. So, and that, doesn't go just for, the Crocketeers, Los Verdes, and the other supporters groups throughout MLS, USL, and even NISA. I know that they've also stepped up as well.
Yeah.
So, and I know this section might be a little bit hard, but in kind of the previews here, what to expect on game day? Like post game, for that here. And I know there's two supporter groups, in Austin Anthem and Los Verdes. So I know this is kind of hard to answer since you haven't had an official game day yet, but what is it that you guys are hoping to be able to show, at the stadium, and for the atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, we've had La Murga de Austin, this band practice for how long? Over 2 years, right, Landon?
Yeah.
That have been building up to this. And there was definitely a break during the worst periods of COVID, but we've been safely ramping that back up in the last month or so, and have a good selection of songs and stuff ready to go. And I think, if you look back like a year ago, we were having song and chant like January 2020 song and chant events with 70, 80 people, how many 15 months before kickoff. And then without COVID, that would have really taken off, and probably more people would be ready on day one for sure. But I think, with the delayed home start and a lot of away watch parties and weekly band practices and all that stuff, that I think there's going to be a lot of people, despite all of that are going to be ready to go. And I know we've got another kind of banner painting event coming up this weekend, and we're going to have that section full of color and support. And I think that we'll have a something we will be proud of on day one, despite all of that, for sure.
And I know you guys, just from social media and stuff, and from reports that you guys have gone out to UT women's soccer, and also cheered them or supported them as a kind of a way to dust off and get the practice to work out the kinks here. So I'm looking forward to it, as far as being able to see it on TV for that here. Maybe not live because I'll be at Toyota Field, but we'll be catching the games afterwards.
Yeah.
So on the field, and we'll go with you, Landon, here first here. Who is the one player that's going to be the key for Austin FC this year?
I think the big X factor is going to be Cecilio Dominguez. I think if he has a good season, Austin has a chance to be a pretty good team. And I think if he falls flat a little bit, we have a chance to be a pretty bad team. The roster is strong right now, but it's strong for an expansion club. Mm-hmm. And you just don't really know what it's going to look like when they get out there against competition.
For you, Derek, do you have somebody that you're looking to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in what Tomas Pochettino will do. They said today that he'll start training with the team hopefully next week. So a short runway for him, but I think just how he will, bring the team together and orchestrate connecting the back line to the attack, I think will be super important, and just building that chemistry. And to me, I think and I hope that this team will be able to just show us signs of growth this first year, where we're a lot better team at the end of the season than we are on day one is kind of the most important factor to me. Like, did we have a successful season? Well, are we a lot better at the end than we were at the beginning, for sure?
So, and I'll start with you on this one here, Derek, first. What is the player that's maybe not on the radar that you think that will be the one to watch for and maybe develop into a fan favorite? So, To me, it's the type of player that may not score the most goals, but is the one that does the dirty work. I guess you could kind of say that, that stat wise, it may not show really what he brings to the team. Who do you think that would be for Austin FC?
Yeah, I think a player to watch will be Johan Romagna, young center back, was I think 22 years old, Landon.
I believe so, yeah.
And he might not begin the season starting, but I think he's just a physical presence with a lot of potential that we're excited to watch him develop. And I do think, just from hearing other fans talk, that there's been questions about like the back line, like, okay, who's starting? Mm-hmm. Are we sure that, do we need to add more pieces, more experience to that back line or whatever? So to me, that kind of the back line will let me know if we're going to be a good team or not. I would say, we could be an inconsistent team, maybe that scores some goals, but are we actually going to, keep them out of our own net? I think
It doesn't seem like Austin is looking into a Zimmerman like Nashville did last year. Right. So at least not as of yet. Season hasn't kicked off. So Landon, who's your player that is one to watch for? That maybe not fill up the stat sheet, but to a lot of the maybe become a fan favorite despite that.
I think Romagna is a good shout on that one. He seems like just like a really nice guy. I think fans will kind of grow to love him, and also think he has a pretty high upside. He could become a really good defender in this league. Another player that people haven't talked a lot about, but showed some really bright flashes last year with the Red Bulls, is Jared Stroud. Mm-hmm. I think given a chance, he could end up showing some really strong signs. I think a player that, if you pay attention to MLS, this isn't going to be a surprise, but if you're looking for like the most exciting names, this one might not pop out, but Alex Ring is going to be one of the most important players on this team. He's fantastic. I was over the moon whenever I heard that Austin was signing him. So I think he's going to play a huge role in this team and going to be one of the most important pieces. And like you said, not going to score a ton of goals, maybe not have an assist every game, but what he does in the middle of the field there is going to be very important.
And when he's not on the field is when you'll notice it, because we've had a couple of those here in San Antonio, like Pekka, who when he's on the field, it's just a different team because he controls everything. But yet when you look at the stats, there's not a lot of goals, not a lot of assists, but just what he brings, the leadership, the experience. Ring I really do like as well, as a good shout on that one. I have to bring this up just because Capital City did put it out, and we are kind of talking expectations, and it is preseason rankings, and even when I tweeted it, as like, to be fair, preseason rankings, especially the very first one, it's until you see it on the paper, on the field. But they had Austin FC as 6, behind LAFC, Minnesota United, Timbers, Sounders, Sporting Kansas City. So
that's 6 in the Western Conference, right?
6 in the Western Conference, yes. They just did the Western Conference, MLS Western Conference. I won't lie to you, it seems a little high, for it here. I don't think it's the potential. I think could be there. To me, the back line scares me a little bit, and I know you guys have, Derek's already kind of hinted at that may be the weakness of the team, especially in the center backs for that here. But thoughts on, and I guess this is kind of, to me, kind of that expectations, and I'll just kind of keep it to the 3 Texas teams, between Dallas, Houston, and Austin, because that's, to be, in my opinion, the goal for Austin FC is to finish above one of those teams. If I think if you guys could finish above one of those teams, even if you're towards the lower end of the standings in the West, I think you guys could still say, hey, it's been a successful season. We're better than either Dallas or Houston. So we'll start with you on this one here, Landon. your thoughts on, the kind of preseason where you would rank, the three teams, with, Texas MLS.
Yeah, I agree with you on sixth being a little bit optimistic there. I think I would be thrilled if we finished sixth. I think that would be a really strong season.
You'd be in the playoffs most likely.
Oh yeah, definitely. Everyone makes the playoffs in MLS. So looking, I would
Cincinnati.
I would say like probably somewhere between sixth and ninth is probably. I don't think this team is going to be bad by any means. I think there's too many guys who have played a lot of games in MLS and know how this league works that they'll have that to fall back on. And then also, not to mention, we have, I think, 4 or 5 guys that were captains for their previous teams. So you've got leadership, you've got experience, guys who know the league. So I don't think there's any way it's just going to fall apart and be a complete shambles. My concern is where the goal is going to come from. I'm not as down on our back line as some people are. I think there's definitely some potential there. But yeah, I don't know where the goals are going to come from. So that's my biggest concern. But I think 6th to 9th is probably a good little window for us to aim for.
For you, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I think that 6 is a reasonable prediction, but yeah, I could see a wide range kind of on either side of that. I think, I mean, I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I think that the ceiling is higher than 6 as well. But yeah, this is a pretty political answer. But I mean, I think another thing too is they're going to add at least one more big player in the coming months. They've been pretty
mid-season though, I think, right? Well,
what's that?
Sort of mid-season.
Yeah. Well, they said summer, and now the season's been pushed back, 6 weeks.
Right, could be, so June is when transfer windows open up again.
Exactly.
So
it could be 6 or 7 games in the season.
Yeah.
So that could influence who they add in the summer. But yeah, I feel pretty confident that they will be in the running for the playoffs. I'll say that.
So to go back to your original question, I'm curious to know what you think, Derek. As far as the Texas teams, how would you rank the Texas teams?
I don't know, because I think Houston did make some moves, and they're not going to be as terrible as they were. Go ahead, Harry. What do you say?
I think Dallas is the clear number one. The question is has Houston improved enough to be able to get out of where they were? Because they were a bad team last year. How Matt Jordan's still with them, I don't understand that, but that's for a different discussion. But I do think that they have brought in some players. To me, Austin kind of scares me because it's an expansion team. It can go very well. Like, Nashville last year where, it's the steady through there, or it can go very bad like Minnesota United or, Cincinnati. And until you see them on the pitch, it's hard to see. But I do think compared to the last two, Cincinnati and Nashville, you guys don't have a lot of USL talent. Where those two teams had, because they came from USL, they had several USL players. So I think where you've got at least the starters being MLS quality, and I think I've read 4 captains, I think, if memory serves me right, that of former MLS teams. I think the starting 11, I don't really have concerns on. The depth is what concerns me, especially if Austin is part of the Open Cup and some of the other events that MLS has throughout the year, along those lines, to be able to stay above Houston, because I think Dallas, and I think Dallas is the best so far, just because they were the best team in Texas last year.
Yeah, I would put Dallas above Austin. Houston did make a lot of really positive moves. If you just looked at the players that came in, you'd look at that and go, oh, this is really positive. But they also lost two of their best players. And really one of the only bright spots on the team for the last few years is gone. And so, in Elise. So yeah, I'd honestly like to see Houston do better. I think it's more fun if all three Texas teams are pretty good, but I'm not entirely convinced it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So here's my next question, and I'll go first on this one because it involves my team here. How do you see Austin FC and the San Antonio FC rivalry, let's say in the next 5 years? Number one, I hope they're still independent, because there's always the fear down here is that we're going to be, Austin FC 2, which I don't see happening. But, with Spurs, you never know. But I don't believe that'll happen. But for me, what I would like to see is, a loan here and there. Obviously Open Cup matches because, obviously right next to each other. But I think for me, what I would like to see is to have 2 annual friendlies, preseason friendlies, one in Austin, one in San Antonio, and a day where the 2 academies also play each other. So that way you could make it a day, if San Antonio's up there, if that's the year, watch the 2 academies go at it, and then, go to Q2 Stadium and watch, SAFC and Austin FC player. It could be played at the practice facility. But for me, that's what I would like to see. Number one, remain independent. But number two, at least have that healthy relationship between the two where players can go back and forth. Because I think for Austin FC, San Antonio is an important market for them. Maybe not initially, but I think down the road, 4, 5, 6 years from now, being able to draw, let's say 1,000, 2,000 people up from San Antonio up to there will help keep their attendance, above Houston and Dallas. And I'm a firm believer that, MLS views this as one market. It's already been confirmed that San Antonio is in, Austin FC's TV market. It hasn't been announced on what channel or, who's going to be covering it. But I would expect that'll be coming probably fairly shortly. But we'll start with you on this, Derek. What would you like to see as far as the rivalry between Austin FC and San Antonio FC?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I'm really looking forward to the Open Cup whenever we get to play in that, which probably won't be this year just on odds. But
hey, if they do the first 3 matches like the rumor is, if you guys get out to a hot start.
Yeah. That's true. And I think that whether it's like you said, like a home away preseason thing would be really cool, or I would love to see some kind of preseason tournament with multiple, MLS and USL Texas teams, and to really get to see all the Texas teams play each other at some point. Maybe that only happens, we play half of them this year and half of them the next year, however we have to do that. But I think that would be really cool. And I mean, I want to go and visit all the stadiums and cheer on my team in all the different USL cities in Texas for sure.
For you, Landon, how would you like to see the Austin and San Antonio rivalry take shape, in the next 5 years?
I mean, honestly, I think it would be fun just if it does at all, because with the setup, like if you're someone who wants to see that rivalry, I think your biggest concern is that we're not going to play each other enough for it to actually become a real rivalry. But if there was like an annual thing, like you were saying, I think that could create something like that. And I think it would be fun just to have somebody so close. I mean, do you think it's probably an hour and a half from stadium to stadium? Yeah,
depending on traffic, but yeah.
So I think it'd be great to have a rivalry that close. And one thing I think that might help if Austin FC is able to create a competitive academy is those kids are already playing each other, right? Like
yes.
San Antonio is the Austin FC kids view San Antonio as one of their biggest rivals right now. So yeah. I think if any of those kids can come up to the first team, then they're going to view those. They're like, oh yeah, I played against you since I was 15 or whatever. So I would really love to see it just because it's going to be the closest team outside of Austin to us. So I think that would be fun.
And I do think the loan feature is an important part of it as well. Especially coming from Austin FC, to be able to have, let's say, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's been rumored that Brady Scott, was quote unquote on loan, but not on loan afterwards.
Yeah, I was in the big fat middle of that by accident on Twitter the other day.
But well, I think odds are he gets loaned out. I just think because you guys have got two solid goalkeepers and for a third one, especially with Scott being a young goaltender. Just using last year as an example, Dane St. Clair came down from Minnesota United, played 5-6 matches, and then got called up, back to Minnesota United, and he played in the playoffs, partly because of injuries through their hair. But it was a good foundation. It got him the minutes that he needed to keep improving. I know for us, we have Jose Gallegos that if he wants to go MLS, like I said here, to me would be an awesome first entry from the San Antonio to Austin FC connection, because I do think, and I'm speaking, as this is from an Austin FC perspective, I do think being able to draw from San Antonio FC and being able to maybe, acquire or, bring in, a player that's played in San Antonio. And I know you guys brought in Michael Hood as part of the TV guy who was formerly, San Antonio FC. I think having those cross the players that have played at both will help develop the Austin FC market here, in San Antonio, which I'm a firm believer that, that Austin FC has to work on doing that.
Yeah, I think for San Antonio fans that are concerned about becoming Austin FC 2, it kind of seems like the league is moving away from that model a little bit. And Claudio has said outright within the first few seasons, we are not going to have a direct USL affiliate. Like, we might loan a player out here, loan a player out there. And so I think if you're wanting to keep, especially a young player, you mentioned Brady Scott, just a young guy, if you want to keep him close so you can still come practice with the team, work out with the team occasionally, and not lose connection completely. Mm-hmm. San Antonio is perfect because it's right down the road, as an established competitive team. So I think it would be great for them to have a relationship for sure.
Depending on the Bold and what the relationship looks like with the Bold too, right? Because that would be even easier.
Yeah,
but that's a more stickier,
right?
That's a more stickier topic. I do think,
it'll be very interesting to watch if anything ever happens between those two teams.
I think it will. I think you've noticed, at least among the fans, you've noticed, the ice start to melt, between the two fan bases. For here, there's still diehards on each one, just like here in San Antonio. There's still diehards that will never support Austin FC or give any money to them, and it's easy to say that now, but I'm in in my mid 40s, but to me the key is my kids, the teenagers at this point. That's who Austin FC and that's who San Antonio FC needs to make sure they're reaching out to, is for that growth of the game to pass from, like in football, it passes from generation to generation to generation. And that's what I'm looking forward to being able to do, with AJ going, with SAFC as my team. Hopefully he'll still carry it, but, if he goes, elsewhere, he goes elsewhere. But for that here, the final topic, and I kind of added this on, just because you can't talk about San Antonio and Austin without the future of women's soccer. And I would like to see an NWSL team in both. I think at this point you could probably see that. But with the explosion of the women's soccer game, with Austin Elite, the Athenians, Central Texas Hornet, Backcountry, and just announced today, Wilco Football Club up in North Austin area here. For the women's game here, do you see Austin FC ever expanding into that? And I know it's kind of year one, so probably a little bit too early to be talking about that. But for women's soccer, and hopefully they work with Austin Elite, who is the who I think is a first-rate organization, and Danny's a great guy, to know and interact with on social media and in person. So I'll start with you, Derek, here first. Your thoughts on women's soccer here in South Central Texas, between Austin and San Antonio?
Yeah, I think there's a huge demand for it. I mean, definitely it's just a TV number, but in the Women's World Cup, Austin had the number one rated market in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We went to, you were at that watch party with me. It was one of several watch parties that had hundreds and hundreds of people at it. And I think just women's soccer just speaks to a lot of people here. I think it really connects with a lot of people, and you can see it in both of the main supporters groups, Austin Anthem and Los Verdes. There are a lot of people in both groups passionate about women's soccer and passionate about doing what we can to make our voice heard and let people know that we want NWSL here. So yeah, I mean, that's my Austin perspective. I'll leave the San Antonio perspective to you. But
I want a team in both. I think NWSL is young enough.
Yeah.
And I think like with the Athenians, and I think 2 years ago when they played, they averaged, I want to say 1,500 to 2,000 average attendance, for a UWS game. And I know when Austin Elite played at Bold Stadium, I think they had close to 1,500 as well, if memory serves me correct, for that there. So that tells me there's a market. Now, obviously, you need somebody with money in both cities to be able to do it. But I think Toyota Field would be, at least at this point, an excellent facility for an NWSL team, and obviously Q2 Stadium, with it being 25,000 somewhere around there, would be a great facility as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Any thoughts on that, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, you see, Austin FC has at least some connections to the women's game already. They're supporting Elite and some different organizations around town. I kind of feel like maybe it would be a lot for them to take on to try to start two expansion teams right off the bat, right? So I don't think it's going to be immediately, but I could see maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, then once Austin FC is established, to bring in that women's team. And like you said, you're going to have facilities for it. Q2 is going to be intimate enough that even if the attendance is slightly lower, that it will still be a really great venue for it. And like Derek was saying, I think there's good demand for it. So I think I would love to see it.
So final thoughts. We'll start with you, Landon, here. Any final thoughts that you want to share?
I want to go back to a point that you were making before of expansion teams kind of flopping. I think it's still a possibility that Austin FC flops, but if they do, it's not going to be for the same reasons that FC Cincinnati and Minnesota did.
Right.
FC Cincinnati didn't have a general manager when they were building their team. And Minnesota just kind of did a soft launch. And we're just going to essentially play a USL team this season, and we'll worry about building a real team next year. Austin FC hasn't done that. They got as experienced of a coach as you can have without actually having coached a first team game. A pretty coherent plan as to how they want to play and what they want to do. So I'm not under any illusions thinking they're going to finish first in the conference, but I think it would be a massive failure if they didn't make the playoffs. And I really think that they will.
Your final thought there, Derek?
Yeah, I think the final thought is just imagining myself along with other supporters, hopefully on the road 7 weeks from now, 6 weeks from this weekend, I guess. Hopefully in Dallas or Houston, I think, so we can get a lot of us out there. And that's just what I'm envisioning, and just getting excited about, like, literally every single day thinking about it. And but yeah, I just can't wait to see where this takes us, and hopefully we all get a bunch of shots in our arms as soon as we can.
Yeah, be safe.
Yeah.
So my final thought is, it's been a long road, for Austin FC fans. I know we touched about it on the start, about how Austin FC fans kind of were thrown into the middle of it here. San Antonio fans were kind of, thrown into, had the rug pulled out from underneath them, and, as well as the crew. But I think for MLS, they got it right. The crew stayed in Columbus. They're getting their stadium. Austin FC wasn't rushed, onto the pitch, playing at Round Rock. I think rumor was they were going to play at Round Rock, which I think, in my opinion, would have been a disaster. Not the good first impression that you guys are going to be able to build up now with having that 2-year wait. And for San Antonio FC, and like I said, this is just, me thinking where, and from some of the stuff that I've heard, I think with Austin getting it, that they didn't have to commit, because I don't know if they were fully willing to commit the full funds for it. So hopefully fans will start to come around, and like I said here, I know Bold fans, SAFC fans, we'll have a lot more of these interactions and shows like Landon, and I know the Anthem have a show. I know there's a couple other podcasts here in San Antonio that 2 years ago, if you mentioned Austin FC, it was, what the hell are you doing? Now it's a lot more accepted, and hopefully coming in years, shows like this where, you have Austin FC and San Antonio fans on here will be more than normal, and, a lot more just about banter than, all the drama of how it started. So looking forward to the next 2 years to kind of see the rivalry grow. It doesn't seem like this year it's going to kick off unless San Antonio is one of the, I think you have 3 unannounced preseason friendlies, and we have yet to see a preseason schedule. I am hoping that Austin and San Antonio play each other on an annual basis. I think it would be fun. I think it would be great for both environments. So hopefully, the leadership of SAFC and Austin FC will listen to the fans and let this rivalry take off and for that here. But I do want to thank you, Landon and Derek, for coming on. I know both of you have family, and you guys do your own podcasts, and with Los Verdes, I know your schedule's pretty busy doing that here. So do want to thank both of you for coming on and helping me tonight with United Soccer FC.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Harry. This is fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Harry.